I thought while the motor's out I'd check a few things on my wastegate. It was kind of here, you know, and it was quite loose. There was a bit of a gap, and when it was opening, it was only opening to about there. I've managed to get it so that it's shut solid, and now opens that far. So hopefully that's a problem that I won't have to deal with anymore. And I even tightened up the arm on the actuator because that was coming loose. One of the other things is I have the turbo oil feed. I reused the old crush washers. I never put new ones in, so my mate gave me this box to change them, and you can see the difference. Like, you know, that was probably a problem waiting to happen, not helping with the oil issue I was having, but do a couple of preventative maintenance now while the engine's out, while I still wait for a couple of bits to turn up, and see if we can have some trouble-free motoring once it's done. One of the other things you can see is it looks like the exhaust has been blowing through here and here. You know, it's just slightly, but it is blowing through. But partially, most of that is because it's a cheap downpipe. You can't get a bolt in here, isn't it? There's, you know, it has to be a tiny bolt. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut through here. Just cut that out there, so I'll be able to just slide a bolt up and then be able to pull it tight with a washer, and hopefully that'll clamp that area there. And I might even just run the face of that over the belt sander and see if I can get it a bit flatter. But you know, it's not a great downpipe, but the car's also not going to make 1,000,000 horsepower, so you know, it's plenty big enough for the size of the turbo. Just started running it on the belt sander now, and you can see where the highs and lows are straight away. You know, these areas where it's been blowing through is quite low to these, so we'll see if we can get it all even, and maybe that'll help. Still low in these two areas, exactly where it's been blowing through as well, so maybe it wasn't, well, maybe having the bolt in here would definitely help, but it might not have been flat as well. But you know, you kind of get what you pay for, I suppose. For granted, I need a new belt on the sander, but that actually took quite a while to get it to here. I know it's a cheap manifold, but it was pretty far out. The other thing as well is that little hole, like this whole area here is just for the wastegate, and I don't know if you can see that. Try and get it around a bit of a light. That little hole there, that's all that is the wastegate exhaust comes through. I might get the Dremel in there and open that right up. I know it's hard to see, but I've kind of opened that up. It's a bit of a shit design, but you know, it wasn't expensive, but I have opened that up quite a bit now, so hopefully it's better, and hopefully that surface seals better. On another note, fuck that for a job, man. Jesus Christ. That there is a crazy man. I just fold up this little panel out of mild steel. I'm going to plug weld it to the sump because there's hoses that run under the sump, so kind of like a little bit of a guard for them and to keep them tucked up out the way. Just like that. Just plug welded on there. It's not going anywhere. I'll put rubber on the sides, and there's ample room between here and the cross member, but it means that the coolant that I'm running to the Toyota water or coolant oil cooler, they run under the sump. Otherwise there's already way too many hoses in this engine bay, so the easiest way was to run them. They have been run under the sump, but now the engine's out, if I tuck that in there, then it just means that, you know, I can keep them out the way and quite secure. Give it a bit of a paint, put some rubber around here, it should be good to go. Just bent the turbo coolant line as well a little bit better, so it routes a bit better, but you can see both hoses then can pass under the sump nicely around here to the Toyota cooler. But as you can see, there's the plug for the idle air control, and that there is the oil cooler. But even then, you know, with the pinto oil filter, it would never fit. So now you go and whack a filter in there as well, and that's why I've got to use the 1600 crossflow oil filter, because the pinto is just too big. Like the pinto was absolutely touching the plug for the idle air control. So you whack a filter in there, and now that's it. That's the room you've got. That's what I'm thinking this time, because you can't even get your finger in from the side to put the plug on. I'm thinking I'm going to put the plug on, stick it on, and then put another plug that joins the wires further up here out of the way, because then it can just be unplugged and I don't have to worry about fucking around with this one, because as you can see, it's a bit of a nightmare. And then you throw an alternator in here as well, and the only way you can get your finger into the plug is through here, and if you've got gorilla hands like me, then there's no way of doing it. Well, that's it. I think that's pretty much everything done. All I need now is I need the hose clips to turn up, my new oil filter and engine oil, and she's good to go back in the hole. But as you can see, like I said before, you know, it gets pretty tight in there. As soon as you have the idle air control in there, the brace, there's two of those for the inlet manifold, because, you know, it's a heavy old beast. It was never meant to be there. You start running out of room. So I cut the plug off this from the loom and just extended the wires. So I've ordered a couple of plugs, so once the Deutsch connector turns up, I'll be able to put a plug on the end of this and then just plug that straight back into the loom. But it means I don't have to get my fat hands in here and try and unplug this anymore. So, and I wrapped a cable tie around it, so it's never going to go anywhere. But yep, once the alternator's in there, it still allows me room, because strange enough, after all of this, that little screw right there might be the only thing that needs adjusting. If it's not that, then it'll just be adjusting the frequency in hertz on the ECU, but I'm pretty sure it's that screw. So the oil cooler's back in now. That's all clocked, because you've got an engine mount that comes out this way. And like I say, you know, once you start putting a oil filter in there, there's bugger all room, and that's all inside, you know, upside down in the engine bay. So you got to lie on your back to get to most of this stuff, and the chassis rail is kind of right about here. But yeah, I'm pleased with that. I secured the dipstick in there as well, because when I was smoke testing it, I realized there's a little bit of smoke coming out of there. I'm going to find a way of tagging the dipstick itself in the hole, so you know, once it's pushed in the hole, you can put a clip on it or something, so it can't be popped out again, because I notice there's a bit of pressure in there as well. But apart from that, coolant hoses now for the oil cooler come under here. I rerouted this pipe from the turbo, so now it comes up and it tucks behind this engine mount, like the turbo drain. This one here goes to the coolant lines in the engine bay. But that's it, nicely tucked away, nice and secure now as well, so they can't really get caught on anything when you're putting it in and out of the car, and much safer. Wastegate's all sorted, downpipe is all sorted. That's it, man. It's pretty much ready to go. It's oil filter and oil, and well, actually, sorry, a couple of hose clamps. As soon as I thought I had some spare, but when I ordered the oil and oil filter, I ordered a bunch of hose fittings as well, so they should be here on Monday. Once they're on, I'll button up all these hoses and everything, and then The engine go back in the hole, and then the oil and oil filter, and that's it, all done. Some more bits turned up. I've got the well, that's the oil and filter for my Focus, and then new oil, new filter, coolant, and some more hose clamps for the motor, and I think, yeah, a couple of more connectors for 2 plugs that I want to change. So I used to have well, the catch can's always been mounted here, but I've had a few friends go through certification here in New Zealand, which is what we need to be able to get a modified car on the road, and these to atmosphere aren't allowed. So bye bye. It's got to go back into the intake system. So I pulled the fittings off, drilled and tapped them into the manifold. Now there would have been, probably up here would have been better, maybe in the middle of the manifold or the beginning of the manifold might have been sorry, the plenum might have been easier, but there's no room because you've got the injectors on here, you've got the core packs on here, everything is so close. So this is the only space I've got. The cam cover one will go to here, and then the crank breather can come up to here, and then that should solve that issue. Much like that. I know it's not ideal because everything's going to go to number 4, but there's not really many other places I can put it, so that is just going to have to do. Put some connectors on. The hardest 2 plugs to always try and get out, which are the idle air control and the inlet temp. So I've put new connectors on those, which means they can just be connected up here now, which makes life much easier. And obviously put the different plug on each one so they can't get mixed up, and then I'll put the corresponding on the balloon. Another quick one that I've just done, which is required for cert as well, is flaring the ends of the fuel feed and fuel returns, which I kind of knew I had to do, but I hadn't done. And one of the guys that watches said he'd just been through for a cert, and that was one of the ones they picked up on. So I'll have to get underneath and do the ones from the tank as well. Right, so hoses are all buttoned up. That one goes to the coolant rail from the radiator. Front cover's on. Hopefully it doesn't rattle this time. I put some washers behind it. Inlet is on now, whereas normally this has to be bolted on in the car. I'm hoping I don't have to take it off again now. I'm hoping, because everything else is buttoned up and these are coming up through here now, I can put it in the car like that, and then just the wires for the alternator and the starter motor can just be put on from underneath. Those hoses are all good now. I even raised this a little bit because on the throttle position sensor, on the calibration on the ECU, I can get 100% on the ECU by using this, but on the pedal the maximum I can get was about 92%. So I'm hoping by raising up the bracket where the accelerator comes through, it'll allow for a bit more of a pull up. So we'll see. I mean, the joys of just making shit at home, eh? It takes so long to figure things out. This shit does my head in, man. I put all the nuts and bolts. When I pulled that out, everything I take off, all the nuts and bolts go in here. I fucking searched this thing high and low for that nut. That one right there, and that little bugger was not in here. I've looked about 9 million fucking times, and this little fucker was not in here. Come here to look for this screw over here, and look what's right there, eh? What the fuck? Typical way. The effort I went through to keep this and the alternator on the engine when I was putting the engine in, instead of having to put them on afterwards, which is a bit of a nightmare. Bit me in the ass, because before I put it in, when I took off the engine stand, I forgot to put that engine mount on, and man, I had to take most of this apart. The alternative was pull the engine out again and put one bloody engine mount on, or pull it apart. So I kind of had to pull the oil filter off, the oil filter cooler housing, and lift the engine right up as high as I could and put that engine mount back on. What a bloody mission. And to give you a bit of an idea, there's the front tyre, there's the suspension, everything. This is the only way to get an oil filter in here. But at least you don't have to take the engine out to do it. I hope. Yeah. As you can see, it's kind of the room you've got here. I mean, that's the back of the alternator. The idle air controller's up there and sitting right on top of it. There's an engine mount here, and I had to use these bloody weird as Cortina engine mounts. It came on a rusty wagon I bought, but it all kind of works out. But man, she's tight, eh?